Joining me now is Forbes contributor, Toni Fitzgerald. Toni, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Great. The Writers Guild of America went on strike Monday for the first time in 15 years. Can you break it down for us and first explain how we got to this point?
Absolutely. So the Writers Guild of America is basically all the people who write for TV and screen. And they renegotiate their contract. I believe it's every 3 years. And they do that with the studios. Their group is called the AMTP, I believe, something like that. And so essentially they make a deal for the next 3 years that entitles the writers to certain residuals, which is money that they get for their writing once it's done. So, you know, a TV show that goes, it used to be went into syndication, now it goes into streaming, can make millions of dollars in that time, and writers see part of that. So they're essentially negotiating over how much of that they get. Now, the last time these negotiations took place, if you think about it, was right at the beginning of COVID. Nobody wanted to strike at the beginning of COVID. The deal that they got then, even though there were a lot of concerns about streaming, was not as strong as it could have been. So everyone has kind of seen this possibility coming for a while. And, you know, right now, writers are saying that the deals that they're being offered just isn't fair.
And right now, we're currently at a stalemate. Obviously, a strike is worst case scenario. But when you think of the last strike, that was 15 years ago. And in a piece for Forbes, you quoted screenwriter Eric Tipton, and he said this: "Remembering what happened in 2007 is an important context for today. It seems to me that there's a sanitized mythology about the last strike spreading on social media." Can you break that down for us? What does he mean by that?
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, first of all, 15 years doesn't seem like it, but it was a while ago. And certainly in terms of the way technology moves, it was a lifetime ago. The last strike, the writers came out of it with some success. They got some of the things that they were looking for. But I think what he means by a sanitized version of it is thinking that it was a huge success, or, you know, looking back and seeing only the gains and not what was left on the table. The unfortunate reality of what came from that strike is that we didn't have a great understanding at the time of how influential streaming was going to be. I mean, at that point, I think the writers, their biggest demand was that they wanted residuals from downloads. Well, tell me the last time you actually downloaded a show. It just didn't turn out to be the way technology went. It went instead in a subscription direction. So when he's talking about, you know, not looking back at that strike with sort of wide eyes and thinking that it was fantastic, I think it just means that you have to be aware that going on strike is a pretty serious thing to do. And it impacts not just the writers, but everybody who's on the staff of shows that, you know, are not being produced right now. Like the late night shows are already off the air, and that impacts the makeup people, the costume people, everybody.
I think when you look at the landscape of today versus the landscape of 15 years ago, I mean, so much has changed. We have cord cutters right now. We're not really tuning into that appointment TV like we were 15 years ago. Plus, with the rise of social media, I mean, in real time, you can go on Twitter and see updates of the strike as it happens. I'm right now on the East Coast, and I can see the strike almost basically live from the picket lines on the West Coast just by opening Twitter. So is the strike also so much different this time because of all of those changes, mixed with people now can turn to streamers for so much more different content?
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think that the differences you're going to see with this strike are going to play out in social media in terms of public opinion. I'm sure that others have also been on Twitter and seen some of these things. You know, I was looking at the feeds of some of my favorite writers from Ted Lasso, for instance, and they had pictures of the signs that were there, you know, including some pretty funny ones, because writers are writers. I mean, if you want to talk about some good writing, look at the picket signs. But the writers this time have a really unique opportunity to tell their story on social media and get that buy-in from, the public that could help pressure the studios to accept a deal, perhaps before they are ready, but just because you're going to be seeing this play out in real time in such a live way that you didn't 15 years ago. I mean, Twitter was around, but it was not what it is today.